They say a man's true character is revealed when the fire comes. Not when life is easy, not when applause fills the room, but when everything he built begins to burn. 2,000 years ago, the most powerful man in the world, Marcus Aurelius, faced that fire. Plague consumed Rome. Betrayal infected his inner circle. The empire itself was cracking under the weight of chaos. And yet, he didn't curse the gods. He didn't panic. He didn't escape into pleasure or drown in despair. He sat down in his tent, lit a candle, and began to write. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. While his empire was collapsing, Marcus built another one within himself. A fortress made of discipline, clarity, and calm. He could not control the storms of Rome, but he mastered the storms within. That is Stoicism. Not philosophy in books, but the art of surviving fire and rising purified. Now, imagine this. You, sitting in your own kind of ruin. Maybe not an empire, but something you built: a life, a career, a family that cracked under the weight of time, addiction, failure, or regret. You wake up and barely recognize the person staring back in the mirror. What do you do then? You rebuild, not from pride, not for validation, but because the Stoics taught us that rebirth is the most noble form of courage. This is not a video about being perfect. It's about becoming whole again through fire, through virtue, through discipline. Because the truth is, you don't heal by wishing the pain away. You heal by standing in the flames and learning not to burn. So today, we walk the path Marcus Aurelius once walked. We'll rebuild our minds, our habits, our character through 10 timeless Stoic principles. These are not abstract theories. They are living tools forged by philosophers, soldiers, slaves, emperors, and ordinary men who faced the same storms you face now. Each principle is a brick. Each virtue is mortar. And by the end, you will not just learn Stoicism, you will rebuild yourself through it. Because here's the harsh truth. No one is coming to save you. The only one who can lift you out of the ashes is the one who fell into them. So sit still, breathe deeply, and remember, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. This is the ultimate guide to rebuilding yourself through Stoicism. Part 1. Accept the ruins. Before you rebuild, you must first accept that something has fallen apart. That's the first truth every Stoic faces, not with bitterness, not with denial, but with clarity. Because you cannot rebuild a life you refuse to admit is broken. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Loss is nothing but change, and change is nature's delight." He wrote that after losing his teacher, the man who shaped his philosophy, who gave him wisdom and guidance. Imagine that. To lose someone who molded your mind, and yet to find peace not by denying the pain, but by embracing it as part of life's law. That is what the Stoics meant by amor fati, the love of fate. Not tolerating it, not surviving it, loving it. Because life, in its brutal honesty, doesn't care about our plans. It doesn't pause when you're not ready. It doesn't ask if you can handle what's next. One morning, everything seems fine. By nightfall, you could lose your job. Your partner could leave. Your health could crumble. Your dreams could die quietly, without warning. And yet, what separates the weak from the wise is not what happens, it's how they respond. The weak curse the fire. The wise study it. When you finally stop running from the ruins, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see beauty in the wreckage. That's the paradox of Stoicism. The same moment that destroys one man can awaken another. Look at your own life. Every heartbreak, every failure, every humiliation, they've already done what comfort never could. They've shown you what truly matters. They've stripped away illusions. When life burns your house down, it shows you the foundation, what was always real, beneath the decorations. That's where rebuilding begins, not with denial, not with self-pity, but with honesty. Sit with your ruins, walk among them, touch the walls that have fallen, whisper to yourself, yes, this happened, not, why me? But, what now? Because the Stoics didn't waste energy blaming the gods or the world. They knew that tragedy, pain, and loss are not personal, they're universal. They're the price of existence. Seneca said, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests the brave." That's not poetry, that's physics. You can't forge strength without friction. So stop asking life to be easier. Ask yourself to be stronger, because you've already survived things you once thought you couldn't. And you're still here, breathing, watching, listening. That means there's still clay in your hands. The ruins are not your tomb, they're your workshop. Let's make this real. Here's a practice that will test your courage. Take out a notebook. Write down everything in your life that's in ruins, the mistakes, the regrets, the things that didn't go your way. Write without censoring yourself. Don't make it pretty. Don't make it wise. Just let the truth spill out. Now, look at that list and say this sentence out loud. This is mine. I own this, not as a punishment, but as liberation. Because the moment you take ownership of your ruins, they stop owning you. They become your materials. They become your story. And that story is far more powerful than pretending everything's fine. Here's what no one tells you. When you finally stop fighting reality, life softens. The pain doesn't disappear, but it loses its sharpness. You stop bleeding from the wound and start learning from it. Marcus called this aligning with nature, meaning stop expecting the world to behave the way you wish and start flowing with it the way it actually is. In other words, don't curse the storm. Adjust your sails. That's the essence of Stoic acceptance, not passive resignation, but intelligent surrender. You are not giving up. You are giving in to reality, to truth, to the only path that leads forward. There's a reason this principle comes first. Because before you can rebuild discipline, courage, or peace, you must clear the rubble of denial. You must stop saying, "This shouldn't have happened," and start saying, "This did happen, and now I will rise." The Stoic doesn't escape the past. He redefines it. He looks at every scar and says, "This is proof that I survived the fire." That is not weakness, that is rebirth. So if you've lost something, your confidence, your direction, your purpose, don't rush to replace it. Sit in the silence it left behind, because that silence is sacred. It's the space where clarity begins to whisper. And from that whisper, you'll hear something new, not the noise of your past mistakes, but the calm voice of your inner philosopher saying, "This is where we start again." Every empire that ever existed eventually fell. Every human being eventually breaks. But the ones who rise again are those who face the ashes and say, "I will build something stronger this time, not out of ego, but out of wisdom." Known. Marcus did not mourn his losses forever. He used them as reminders of impermanence, as teachers of humility. You can do the same. So today, when you look at the pieces of your life, don't despair. See them as fragments of a statue waiting to be carved anew. And remember, the masterpiece was never the marble itself. It was always the sculptor within you, waiting for the chance to begin again. You don't need to rebuild fast. You just need to rebuild consciously. And it starts here, with acceptance. Because the ruins are not the end of your story. They're the raw material for your return. The obstacle is the way. The fire is the forge. The ruins are the beginning. Now, let's pick up the first stone and start rebuilding. Part 2. Take radical responsibility. There comes a point in every life when you realize no one is coming to save you. Not your parents, not your friends, not fate, not luck. And that realization hurts, but it also frees you. Because the moment you stop waiting for rescue, you start rebuilding. That's what the Stoics called radical responsibility, the courage to look at your life and say, everything I am, everything I have, everything I lack is partly my doing. It's not self-blame, it's self-ownership, and it's where all transformation begins. Epictetus understood this truth better than anyone. He was born a slave, beaten, crippled, humiliated. He had no power, no wealth, no freedom, and yet he became one of the greatest philosophers in history. When asked how he endured, he said something that still cuts through the noise of centuries. No man is free who is not master of himself. Freedom, to Epictetus, wasn't about breaking chains, it was about mastering the mind that wears them. He couldn't control his body. He couldn't control his captors. But he could control how he responded. He could control what he believed. He could control the meaning he gave his pain. And in that control, he found peace. That is the essence of Stoicism. We can't control the world, but we can always control our judgment of it. We can't stop the storm, but we can decide what it means. We can't change how others act, but we can decide how we respond. Because the Stoics believed this simple truth: your power begins where your excuses end. Most people live trapped in blame. They blame their childhood, their parents, their boss, their partner, the system, the timing. But blame is a soft prison. It keeps you comfortable because it tells you it's not your fault. And yet it keeps you powerless because it whispers, it's not your responsibility. Radical responsibility is harder, but it's the only way out. It forces you to face the mirror, to strip away excuses, to ask the one question that changes everything. What can I do about it now? Not what I could have done yesterday, not what they should have done for me, but what I can do right now. That's how power returns. Every time you choose responsibility over complaint, you shift the balance of your life. You stop being a victim of the external and become the commander of the internal. Because life is not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens. Seneca said, "We suffer more from imagination than from reality." And he was right. It's not the event, it's the story you tell about it. Responsibility begins when you stop rewriting the past and start redirecting the present. Here's a truth most people avoid. You can't grow and blame at the same time. Blame freezes you. Responsibility frees you. Blame says, I wish things were different. Responsibility says, I will make them different. Blame looks backward. Responsibility looks forward. Blame feels righteous. Responsibility feels heavy. But only one of them builds strength. And here's something the Stoics understood deeply. Responsibility isn't emotional. It's practical. When something goes wrong, the Stoic doesn't whine. He doesn't dramatize. He doesn't point fingers. He pauses and asks, what can I do about it? Because life will always test you. But your judgment, your choices, determine whether those tests destroy you or shape you. That's the art of self-mastery. It begins in the smallest, quietest moment. The moment you choose ownership over outrage. Here's your practice. Next time you want to complain, stop. Ask yourself, what can I do about it now? And if the answer is nothing, then let it go. Because if you can't act, worrying is just noise. And if you can act, then action is your therapy. That's how the Stoic keeps his peace, by separating what can be changed from what cannot. Another simple practice. Eliminate the phrase, should have. I should have tried harder. I should have known better. I should have left sooner. Every should have is a chain linking you to a past that doesn't exist anymore. Replace it with, I will. I will try harder next time. I will learn from this. I will move forward. The difference is small but life-changing, because should have keeps you trapped in regret. I will moves you into motion. Marcus Aurelius wrote every night, reminding himself not to waste energy blaming the world. He said, "The world is change, our life is what our thoughts make it." That's Stoic realism. He didn't say life is fair. He said life is yours to shape. He knew you can't control the empire outside you until you control the empire within. And that empire is built through discipline, through humility, through the daily act of responsibility. The truth is, taking responsibility hurts at first. It means admitting you've wasted time, that you've sabotaged yourself, that your pain isn't all someone else's fault. It burns. But that pain is the fire that purifies you. Because once you take ownership, you can finally take action. And action, no matter how small, is the first sign that you're alive again. Epictetus once said, "Circumstances don't make the man, they reveal him to himself." That's what responsibility does. It reveals you. When everything goes wrong, when there's no one left to blame, you meet yourself and realize the person you've been waiting for was you. So stop saying, "I didn't deserve this." Stop saying, "They ruined my life." Say this instead, "It happened. Now I will decide what happens next." Because that's all you ever control: the next thought, the next word, the next action. Everything else is smoke. Here's the Stoic truth. The world owes you nothing, but you owe yourself everything. And self-mastery begins where excuses end. So when life hits, you don't ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What can I do now?" When you fall, don't say, "I shouldn't have." Say, "I will rise again." Because no one can rebuild your life for you. Only you can. You are not powerless. You are responsible. And that's the same thing as saying you are free. Self-mastery begins where excuses end. And the moment you stop explaining why you can't is the moment you start becoming the person who will. Part 3. Control your inner dialogue. The real battle is never out there. It's in here, inside your own mind. Because the truth is, your greatest enemy isn't the person who betrayed you or the world that failed you. It's the voice inside your head whispering that you can't do this, that you're not enough, that you'll never change. That voice doesn't shout. It corrodes slowly, silently, until you start to believe it. There was a man years ago who told me his story. He had spent most of his life chained to a bottle. Every night he drank to silence the noise. Every morning he woke up with the same words echoing in his mind. "You're broken, you're hopeless, you're done." He tried to fight it with willpower. He tried to drown it out with distractions. But nothing worked, because you can't escape a voice that lives in your own head. Then one morning, after another night of regret, he stood in front of the mirror, eyes bloodshot, hands shaking, and whispered something different. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and steady. "No, I'm not broken, I'm rebuilding." That sentence, small, fragile, became the first stone in his recovery. Because in that moment, he didn't change his life. He changed his language. And language is where transformation begins. The Stoics understood this. They believed that perception always comes before emotion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It's not what happens to you that breaks you. It's how you talk to yourself about what happens. You lose your job. One voice says, "I'm ruined." Another says, "I'm being redirected." You fail at something. One voice says, "I'm worthless." Another says, "I'm learning." Same event. Different dialogue. Different destiny. Your inner voice is not harmless. It's the architect of your reality. Every word you whisper to yourself builds or breaks the walls of your mind. Tell yourself you're weak long enough, you'll stop trying. Tell yourself you're resilient long enough, you'll start proving it. The Stoics called this the discipline of perception, training your mind to see through clarity, not through fear or self-pity. Because what you think becomes how you feel, and how you feel becomes how you act. If you want to change your actions, you must first change your thoughts. And to change your thoughts, you must change the voice narrating them. But here's the difficult truth: that voice will not disappear on its own. You must confront it. You must learn to speak back. When it says, "You can't handle this," you say, "I can endure this." When it says, "You failed again," you say, "I've learned again." When it says, "It's too late," you say, "It's never too late to begin." That's Stoic resilience, not ignoring the storm, but commanding your response to it. Epictetus was born a slave, beaten, mocked, crippled, and yet he said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them." He refused to let his suffering define him because he refused to let his thoughts control him. That's the power of the inner dialogue. It can make you a prisoner or set you free. When I was rebuilding my life, I had to face that voice every morning. It told me I wasn't good enough, that I'd wasted too much time, that I didn't deserve a second chance. Some days I believed it. Other days I wrote it down and rewrote it. I started changing phrases one by one. "I'm not ready" became "I'm preparing." "I'm broken" became "I'm healing." "I can't handle this" became "I can endure this." And slowly, my language began to rewire my life. Because your brain listens to your words more than it listens to your intentions. What you repeat becomes what you believe. And what you believe becomes who you are. Here's your practice. Take a page of your journal. Write down the thoughts that loop in your mind when things go wrong. Don't censor them. Don't judge them. Then, beside each one, write its Stoic response, the voice of reason, not emotion. Example: "I can't do this." "I can endure this." "I'm a failure." "I'm still learning." This isn't fair. It is what it is now. What can I do? This isn't positive thinking. It's accurate thinking. It's choosing clarity over chaos. Because the truth doesn't shout, it whispers beneath your noise. You just have to make space to hear it. Marcus wrote in his journal every night, not to boast, not to teach, but to train his own mind. Each line was a conversation between the man he was and the man he wanted to be. That's what journaling is, a way to talk back to the voice that wants to keep you small. And every page is a reminder that you are not your thoughts. You are their observer, their sculptor, their master. Here's something I learned along the way. You can't silence the inner critic completely, but you can teach it to speak differently. Over time, that voice that once attacked you starts to protect you. It says, "You've been here before, breathe." It says, "You've fallen before, but you've risen every time." It says, "This pain isn't punishment, it's training." That's how you know you've rebuilt your mind. Not when you stop hearing the noise, but when the noise becomes wisdom. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And he was right. Most of what hurts us lives only in our thoughts. So learn to question those thoughts. Not every voice in your mind deserves your obedience. You are not what you think. You are what you choose to believe. Tonight, when the noise gets loud, pause, breathe, and listen closely. Then choose which voice you feed. Because inside you, there are always two. The one that says you're broken, and the one that says you're becoming. Feed the second one every day, every moment, every breath. Marcus once wrote, "Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought." So hold something noble. Hold something steady. Hold something true. Because if you want to change your life, you must change the voice narrating it. You are not broken. You are rebuilding. And the words you whisper to yourself are the tools you'll build with. Part 4. Build discipline like a fortress. Discipline. It's not a word people love to hear. Because it doesn't sound comforting, it sounds hard. But here's the truth. Discipline is not a prison. It's a fortress. It's not the cage that keeps you trapped. It's the wall that keeps your peace protected. Without discipline, your emotions rule you. Your impulses drive you. And your potential rots unused. But with discipline, you become free. Free from laziness. Free from distraction. Free from the endless war between I want to and I should. Because true freedom is earned through structure. Marcus Aurelius understood this. Every morning, the Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man on earth, fought the same battle you and I fight every day. The battle to get out of bed. In the freezing dawn, wrapped in his blankets, he would whisper to himself, "Was I made for this, to lie warm under blankets and complain of the cold?" And then he rose, not because he felt like it, but because he had a duty to himself, to his people, to his purpose. That's what discipline is. The act of doing what is right, even when it's hard, even when it's thankless, even when no one is watching. Most people confuse discipline with punishment. They think it means denying pleasure or suppressing joy. But the Stoics saw it differently. Discipline isn't about cruelty to the self. It's about command of the self. It's not about saying, "I don't deserve rest." It's about asking, "Have I earned it?" It's not about deprivation. It's about direction. Because the undisciplined man is a slave to impulse, to comfort, to chaos. But the disciplined man is free. Seneca wrote, "No man is more free than he who masters himself." Think about that. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's having the strength to do what you must. When you live by discipline, your soul commands your body, not the other way around. You eat when you choose to eat. You speak when you choose to speak. You act when it aligns with purpose, not pleasure. That is inner sovereignty. That is power. Discipline doesn't begin with massive gestures. It begins in the smallest acts. Waking up when your body says, 5 more minutes. Finishing what you start. Choosing silence over gossip. Walking when you could drive. Writing when you could scroll. Each act is a brick, and over time, those bricks form a fortress. A fortress of consistency. A fortress of peace. Because the man who builds discipline no longer depends on motivation. He depends on himself. Here's the paradox. Discipline feels restrictive at first, until it becomes the very thing that sets you free. When you master routine, you no longer waste energy deciding what to do. When you master self-control, you no longer fear failure because you've trained your response to it. The undisciplined mind chases everything. The disciplined mind chooses one path and walks it deeply. That's what the Stoics meant by living according to nature. They didn't mean trees and rivers, they meant order, rhythm, purpose. Here's your practice. Morning routine. Rise early, before the noise begins, before the world demands your attention. Sit in silence. Breathe. Think clearly. Ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What needs to be done? 2. What's within my control? 3. What kind of man do I want to be today? Then act not rushed, not chaotic, but deliberate. Because every morning is a battlefield, and discipline is your armor. Next, build a ritual. Do one hard thing daily. Just one. Something that challenges your comfort. It could be a cold shower, a difficult conversation, a long run, or a moment of silence when anger demands reaction. One act of strength each day, and you will train the muscle of discipline. It's not about proving your toughness. It's about reminding yourself, I am not my impulses. I am my intentions. Marcus said, at dawn, when you rise unwillingly, let this thought be in your mind. I rise to do the work of a human being. He didn't mean constant exhaustion. He meant alignment. That discipline is not punishment. It's purpose in motion. When you rise with discipline, you rise with dignity. Because each time you conquer comfort, you reclaim control. Discipline is not loud. It's quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself in the man who endures without complaint, without drama, without audience. It's in the craftsman who returns to his work each day. The father who keeps his word. The woman who trains her mind before her mouth. It's invisible until the day chaos comes and everyone else breaks, but you remain steady. Because you built your fortress long before the storm. Here's the thing about fortresses: they aren't built in a day. They're built in repetition, in silence, in solitude, brick by brick, choice by choice, morning by morning, until one day you realize you no longer chase discipline. You are discipline. Seneca once said, if a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. Discipline gives you that port. It's your anchor when emotion pulls, your map when confusion clouds, your strength when everything else fails. Because the truth is, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your discipline. And that's why the Stoic treats discipline not as restriction, but as liberation. So when the morning feels heavy, when the body begs for comfort, when the mind says, not today, remember Marcus in the cold, whispering to himself, was I made for this, to lie warm under blankets? And then, like him, rise. Because you were not made for comfort. You were made for clarity, for purpose, for greatness earned through effort. Here's your reminder. Discipline is not a punishment. It's a promise. A promise to your future self that you will show up, even when you don't feel like it. Because that is what freedom truly is. Not the ability to do what you want, but the power to do what is right. Freedom is earned through consistency, not comfort. So build your fortress. Rise early. Do one hard thing daily. Stand guard over your own mind. And when the storm comes, you'll be ready. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Part 5. Detach from what you can't control. Most of our pain doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from our refusal to accept that we can't control it. We try to control people, their opinions, their loyalty, their love. We try to control the future, how it unfolds, when it rewards us, what it takes away. And when it doesn't go our way, we suffer. Because all suffering begins the moment we try to hold what was never ours to hold. Seneca knew this truth better than anyone. He was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, an advisor to emperors, a man of influence and intellect. Then, everything changed. False accusations, enemies in the Senate, and in a single decree his wealth, his home, his power gone. He was exiled to a barren island, alone, disgraced, forgotten. But instead of bitterness, he found peace. He began to write letters not of rage, but of calm reflection. He wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." From exile, he learned the lesson most men never do. Freedom is not the absence of hardship, but the absence of attachment to what you can't control. That's what detachment really means. Not coldness, not indifference, but clarity. It's not pretending you don't care. It's knowing exactly what's yours to care about. Your choices, too. Your reactions, your effort, your attitude. That's your domain. Everything else belongs to fate. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But he also wrote that line in the middle of chaos, wars, betrayal, disease. He wasn't hiding from pain. He was walking through it without letting it define him. Detachment is not escape. It's perspective. It's seeing clearly what belongs to you and what never did. When you stop clinging, you stop breaking. When you stop controlling, you start breathing. Because life becomes lighter when you no longer carry what was never yours. Here's the truth. You can't control whether people love you. You can only control how honestly you love them. You can't control how others treat you. You can only control how you respond. You can't control what tomorrow brings. You can only control what you bring to tomorrow. That's detachment. Not the death of emotion, but the birth of clarity. Let me tell you something personal. When I was younger, I tried to control everything, the outcome of every plan, the opinion of every person, the image of who I thought I should be. And every time reality pushed back, I collapsed. Because the tighter you hold life, the more it slips through your hands. One day, I hit a wall mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and I asked myself, what if peace doesn't come from control? What if peace comes from letting go? That question changed everything. Detachment is not apathy, it's mastery. It's saying, I will give my best, but I will not demand that life obey me. It's doing your duty and accepting the outcome with grace. That's where strength lives, in surrender, not resistance. Here's a simple practice, one I still use when the world feels heavy. Take a piece of paper. Draw 2 columns. Label one control. Label the other beyond my control. Then list everything that's weighing on your mind. Your health, your relationships, your finances, your future. And ask yourself, honestly, which of these can I influence right now? Write those in the control column. Everything else put in beyond my control. Then let that second list go. Fold it, burn it, release it. Because worrying about what you can't control is like trying to command the wind. It's exhausting, and it changes nothing. The Stoics called this practice the discipline of acceptance. Not passive surrender, but active wisdom. It's the courage to face what is, without resistance, without denial, without fear. When something goes wrong, you breathe. You ask, can I change this? If yes, act. If no, accept. And in that moment of acceptance, you find peace. Because peace doesn't come from the world. It comes from within the boundaries of your own control. Here's another exercise when you feel overwhelmed, anxious, angry, or lost. Stop. Close your eyes. Take one slow breath in and one long breath out. Imagine yourself stepping out of your body, watching your thoughts from a distance like clouds passing across the sky. See your situation not from within it, but from above it. And say to yourself, I am the observer, not the storm. That's detachment. Not withdrawal, but wisdom in motion. Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." Izimar. Attachment is craving. Craving for control, for certainty, for perfection. But detachment is freedom. When you detach, you don't lose your humanity, you rediscover it. Because you're no longer driven by fear. You're guided by peace. When the Stoics faced loss, they didn't deny the pain. They simply refused to give it power. They said, I did my part, the rest belongs to nature. That's the Stoic contract with life. You do your best and you let go of the rest. Because control is an illusion, but clarity is truth. So the next time life takes something from you, breathe. When someone disappoints you, breathe. When things fall apart, despite all your effort, breathe. You don't need to fix everything. You just need to return to what you can fix: your mind, your actions, your response. That's where your freedom lives. Here's your reflection tonight. Take one thing that hurts you right now, something you wish you could control. Then ask yourself, what part of this belongs to me and what part doesn't? Write it down, see it clearly, and then let the rest go. Because clarity isn't cold, it's kind. It's the kindness of truth. Marcus Aurelius said, "Accept whatever comes to you, woven in the pattern of your destiny." For what could more aptly fit your needs? He didn't mean surrender your will. He meant trust your place within the greater design. You are not powerless. You are just not in control of everything. And that's okay, because peace begins where control ends. Let go of what isn't yours to hold, and watch peace return quietly, faithfully to your hands. Part 6. U.S. Pain as your teacher. Pain changes a man. Sometimes it breaks him. Sometimes it builds him. The difference lies in what he chooses to do with it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle is the way." He wrote those words not from a throne of peace, but from the edge of war after burying his own child. Think about that. An emperor with the weight of the world on his shoulders, writing not about conquest or wealth, but about suffering and transformation. Because Marcus understood something most people never do. Pain doesn't destroy you, it instructs you. It is not the enemy, it is the teacher. When everything falls apart, when the person you trusted leaves, when the world says, "You've failed," your first instinct is to run, to escape, to numb, to forget. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. When pain arrives, sit with it. Study it. Ask it the question most people are too afraid to ask. What is this pain trying to teach me? Because hidden inside every wound is a message. A lesson about who you are and who you can still become. There was a man, let's call him David. He worked for the same company for 20 years. Loyal, dependable. His job became his identity. Then one morning, his name wasn't on the door. A quiet meeting, a polite handshake, and 20 years of certainty gone. For months he drowned in anger and shame. He said, "They took everything from me." But slowly, painfully, he realized something. They hadn't taken his worth, they had only stripped away his distractions. In the silence that followed, he began to remember what he'd forgotten. The books he wanted to write. The people he'd neglected. The man he once dreamed of being. Losing the job didn't ruin him. It revealed him. Pain was never his punishment. It was his invitation to rebuild with purpose. That's what Stoicism teaches. Pain doesn't end your path, it redirects it. Marcus lost a child and wrote of compassion. Epictetus lost his freedom and wrote of strength. Seneca faced exile and wrote of peace. Every Stoic walked through suffering and used it as material for wisdom. They didn't say, "Why me?" They said, "Now what can I learn?" Pain is the great sculptor. It cuts away your illusions. It burns off your vanity. It humbles the ego and purifies the soul. It teaches patience to the proud, empathy to the hardened, faith to the broken. Suffering isn't the end of growth, it's the beginning of it. But here's what most people get wrong. Pain itself doesn't teach. Your attention to it does. You can go through hell and learn nothing, or you can walk through fire and emerge refined. The difference is reflection. So, when you hurt, pause. Ask the question, what is this pain trying to teach me? Write it down. Don't rush it. Let the lesson reveal itself slowly. Because sometimes the pain you resist the most is the one that holds the truth you need most. Here's a simple practice. Take your last failure, the one that still lingers. Now, write down 3 lessons it gave you. Maybe it taught you who your real friends are. Maybe it showed you what you truly value. Maybe it reminded you that comfort is fragile and courage is not. Whatever it was, claim it. Because once you turn pain into lesson, you turn weakness into wisdom. Seneca said, "Fire tests gold, and adversity tests the brave." That's not poetry, that's process. The fire doesn't hate the gold. It refines it. It makes it shine brighter. In the same way, life's trials aren't punishment, they're purification. The moments that once made you crumble are the same moments that shape your character. Suffering carves the shape of your soul, and what it leaves behind is something unbreakable. You might think you're cursed. You're not. You're being chiseled. You're being shaped. The man you were can't carry the weight of who you're meant to be. That's why life removes his armor. That's why it burns his comfort. To expose the core, the truth, the discipline. The Stoic path is not about avoiding pain. It's about learning to transform it. Pain doesn't ask for permission. It arrives, uninvited, unpredictable, but always purposeful. The question is, will you resist it or will you use it? Because when you understand pain, you stop fearing it. You start listening, and it will tell you where you were too careless, where you were too attached, where you were too proud, where you forgot to grow. Then, when it's done teaching, it leaves, and in its place, clarity remains. So next time you suffer, don't waste it. Don't let it pass without meaning. Let it carve you. Let it sharpen you. Because the truth is, pain never kills you. It kills your illusion of who you were. And that death is where life begins again. Suffering carves the shape of your soul. So, don't curse the chisel. Don't run from the fire. They are the sculptors of your strength. Embrace them. Learn from them. Rise through them. Because the obstacle was never in your way. It was the way. Part 7. Seek progress, not perfection. We all fall. Some of us stay down. Some of us rise again and again until rising becomes who we are. That's what it means to live as a Stoic, not to be perfect, but to keep moving forward, one honest step at a time. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You will fall again, get up again, and again, and again." He didn't write that for kings or philosophers. He wrote that for himself, a man who ruled an empire yet struggled daily with weakness, frustration, and fatigue. Even the emperor fell, but he never stayed fallen, because he understood perfection is impossible, but progress is always possible. We live in a world obsessed with perfection, perfect bodies, perfect success, perfect lives on perfect screens. And yet, beneath all that shine, people are breaking, because perfection is not a goal, it's a cage. The Stoic refuses that illusion. He chooses the path of progress, slow, disciplined, humble progress. Because the Stoic knows, it doesn't matter how many times you fail. It matters that you rise one more time than you fall. There was a man, let's call him Michael. He spent 15 years trapped in the same habit, drinking. Every night he promised himself, "Tomorrow I'll stop." Every morning he woke up with regret. He tried everything, therapy, willpower, religion, and every attempt ended the same way. Until one night, sitting alone with a half-empty bottle, he whispered something different. He said, "I may fail again tomorrow, but tonight I'll just try to be a little better." And he did. He didn't stop forever that night, but he stopped for that night, and the next night, and the one after that. A month later, he was sober. A year later, he was free. When someone asked him what changed, he said, "I stopped trying to be perfect. I just started trying to be better." That's Stoicism. That's real progress. Perfection demands all or nothing. Progress accepts small, steady victories. Perfection says, you failed, start over. Progress says, you learned, continue. Perfection is rooted in ego. Progress is rooted in growth. The Stoic knows even the smallest improvement is sacred, because each small victory compounds into transformation. Marcus wrote, "Don't expect the world to make you good. Be satisfied if each day you make yourself a little better." That's the Stoic code. Better today than yesterday, that's enough. Progress is quiet. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't post. It just builds layer by layer, habit by habit, truth by truth. You meditate for 5 minutes instead of 0. You speak one kind word instead of anger. You hold silence for one breath longer than before. It doesn't look like much, but these are the unseen victories that reshape your soul. Here's the truth. Perfection ends where life begins, because real life is messy. It's full of contradictions, missteps, and moments of doubt. You'll say the wrong thing. You'll hurt people. You'll disappoint yourself. But what matters is what you do next. You fall, you reflect. You fail, you adjust. You stumble, you learn. That's the rhythm of the Stoic path. It's not straight. It's not flawless. It's human. Seneca once said, "To be wise is not to be perfect, but to keep striving toward wisdom." The Stoic is not flawless. He's faithful. Faithful to his principles. Faithful to his growth. Faithful to the journey, even when it hurts. Because mastery is not a destination. It's a repetition. Here's your practice. Each morning, set one small goal, just one. It could be as simple as, stay calm when things go wrong. Be patient when others are not. Speak kindly to one person who doesn't expect it. And when night falls, open your journal. Write down 3 good actions from the day, no matter how small. They don't have to be grand. Maybe you listened instead of interrupting. Maybe you forgave yourself for a mistake. Maybe you simply got out of bed when you didn't want to. That's progress. That's how character is built, one small decision at a time. The Stoics didn't chase perfection because they understood. Perfection belongs to the gods. Progress belongs to us. Perfection seeks control. Progress seeks clarity. Perfection punishes. Progress teaches. And most of all, perfection ends in shame. Progress ends in peace. Because the man who seeks progress understands, it's not about reaching the summit. It's about becoming strong enough to keep climbing. Think about it. The man who falls 10 times and gets up 11 is infinitely stronger than the man who never fell at all. Because falling teaches humility, rising teaches courage, and progress teaches faith. Faith in yourself. Faith in the process. Faith that every mistake has meaning if you use it. When you stop chasing perfection, you start living honestly. You stop performing for approval and start practicing for truth. And life, in its quiet way, rewards you. Not with applause, but with peace. Because peace doesn't come from doing everything right. It comes from knowing you did your best and will do better tomorrow. So when you fall, don't curse yourself. Don't drown in guilt. Just say, I fell, but I'm still in the fight. Then get up. Steady your breath. And take the next small step. Because the Stoic path is not walked by the perfect, it's walked by the persistent. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning, "You will fall again, get up again." He knew perfection was impossible, but growth that was within reach. And that's enough. It always has been. So tonight, when you close your eyes, don't ask, "Was I perfect today?" Ask, "Was I better?" If the answer is yes, even by a breath, then you are winning the quiet war within. Because that's what Stoicism is. Not a pursuit of flawlessness, but a devotion to progress. Better today than yesterday, that's enough. always has been, always will be. Part 8. Keep a stoic heart in a chaotic world. The world will test you. People will insult you. Life will betray you. And chaos will come for you when you least expect it. But remember, this calm is not weakness. It's strength in its purest form. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Stay calm in the middle of the storm." He didn't write that from peace or comfort. He wrote it while his empire was burning, while enemies closed in, while his own body failed him. And yet, he stayed still. Because Marcus understood something the world still forgets: anger is easy, calm is power. When life strikes, most people react. They shout, they blame, they seek revenge or validation. But the Stoic, he pauses, he breathes, he waits, because he knows the first response is rarely the right one. Imagine this. Someone insults you in public. They twist your words, mock your effort, try to make you small. Your body tightens. Your mind screams to defend itself. But instead of striking back, you stop. You breathe. You ask yourself, if I react, do I serve my ego or my peace? If I react, and in that small moment of silence, you take back your power. Because no one truly controls you until they control your reaction. That's what Marcus meant when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." The world is noise, but you are the one who decides what becomes music. The Stoic heart is not cold. It's clear. It doesn't close itself to feeling, it filters it through reason. When betrayal comes, it doesn't say, "I feel nothing." It says, "I will feel this, but I will not let it consume me." When injustice arrives, it doesn't shout into the void. It acts with dignity, with precision, with patience. Because Stoic calm is not about indifference, it's about discipline. There's a story about a man named Robert. He worked for years to build his business, his reputation, his name. Then one day, a partner, someone he trusted, stole it all. Money, clients, credit. Robert could have fought back in fury. He could have shouted, cursed, destroyed everything in return. But instead, he walked away. He stayed silent. He rebuilt. And 5 years later, he was stronger than ever. When asked how he did it, he said, "I learned that calm isn't surrender, it's strategy." That's Stoicism in the modern world. Stillness as strength, silence as control, peace as a weapon. But make no mistake, calm is not easy. It takes more courage to stay still than to lash out. Anyone can shout. Anyone can hate. But only a few can breathe through the fire and remain composed. That's mastery. That's power. Here's a truth the Stoics lived by. You cannot stop the storm, but you can become the mountain it crashes against. So when chaos rages around you, visualize this. A mountain, unmoved by the wind, unshaken by the thunder, standing silent, timeless, indifferent to the storm. That mountain is your mind when trained in calm. The Stoics had a method for this, a simple practice called the 3-step rule. Pause, breathe, respond. When chaos hits first, pause. Don't react. Still your body. Then breathe. Let oxygen return clarity to your thoughts. And finally, respond. Not from emotion, but from intention. That single sequence practiced daily can change the entire direction of your life. Because chaos feeds on reaction. It grows stronger when you lose control, but it starves in silence. That's why calm people often seem dangerous to the impulsive. Because you can't predict someone who refuses to react. You can't manipulate someone who controls their own temperature. Their peace disarms your chaos. Seneca said, "He who angers you conquers you." Every time you lose your temper, you surrender power to something unworthy of it. But every time you stay calm, you reclaim sovereignty over yourself. That's not weakness. That's warfare, the quiet kind. The kind fought not on battlefields, but within your own mind. To keep a stoic heart in a chaotic world is to build your own fortress, not of walls, but of wisdom. A fortress that no insult, no betrayal, no injustice can breach. Because the stoic heart knows the world can shake your body, but it cannot touch your spirit unless you open the gate. So when the world turns loud, go quiet. When people become cruel, stay kind. When everything around you spins out of control, be still. Because your stillness is not their victory. It's your freedom. Here's your daily practice. When something disturbs you, stop and ask, is this within my control? If yes, act with calm precision. If no, let it pass like wind through trees. Then, at night, close your eyes. Visualize a mountain, tall, strong, silent, rooted deep, while storms crash around it. That mountain is your mind, untouched by noise, unshaken by chaos. The more you practice this vision, the more real it becomes. Until one day, nothing can move you without your consent. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do only what you do. That's stoic calm, not apathy, authority. Because when you master your inner world, the outer one loses its power over you. So remember this. Calm is not the absence of emotion. It's the mastery of it. It's not coldness. It's clarity. It's not passivity. It's power controlled, deliberate, unyielding. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that doesn't break. The kind that endures. So when the storm comes, and it will, don't fight it. Don't curse it. Stand in it. Breathe through it. Because the storm will pass. But what remains is the strength you built by standing still. Calm is your greatest weapon. Guard it. Train it. Live by it. And when the world loses its mind, you will still have yours. Part 9. Live by virtue, not emotion. There comes a moment in every life when emotion calls louder than reason. Anger screams. Fear trembles. Desire tempts. And pride whispers, do what feels right. But the Stoic knows what feels right is not always what is right. That's why he chooses something stronger than emotion. He chooses virtue. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Simple words, but behind them an entire philosophy of life. Because the Stoic does not measure himself by his mood, but by his values. He doesn't ask, "What do I feel?" He asks, "What is right?" To live by virtue is to live by a compass, one that points not toward comfort or convenience, but toward truth. And that compass, for the Stoics, has 4 cardinal points: wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. Together, they form the foundation of a disciplined life, a life that doesn't bend to emotion, but moves with purpose. Wisdom is the ability to see clearly, to separate what is real from what is illusion. It's the quiet voice that says, pause, think, see the whole picture. When the world tries to drag you into reaction, wisdom holds you steady. It reminds you that emotion clouds vision, but understanding restores it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to act rightly, even when fear is present. It's what allows you to tell the truth when it's dangerous, to do the hard thing when it's unpopular, to face pain without losing your dignity. Courage is not loud. It's quiet. It's the steady hand that signs the paper no one else dares to touch. Justice is the will to give everyone, including your enemies, what they are due. It is fairness without hatred, strength without cruelty. There's a story of Marcus Aurelius himself. One of his generals, a man he trusted, betrayed him, sold secrets to the enemy, caused the death of hundreds. The Senate demanded vengeance execution by humiliation, torture, and public spectacle. Marcus listened. He nodded. And then he said quietly, "We will not avenge, we will correct." He sentenced the man to death, not from hatred, but from justice. Because justice is not about revenge. It's about restoring balance. That's what makes virtue powerful. It serves truth, not ego. And finally, temperance, the art of self-control. Temperance is the ability to hold power and not be consumed by it, to taste pleasure and not become addicted, to feel anger and not let it dictate your words. It's moderation in thought, speech, and action. The balance between emotion and reason, between hunger and harmony. Temperance is the invisible strength behind every great man, because the one who masters himself needs no one else to obey him. Together, these four virtues form the Stoic's armor, not against the world but against himself, because the enemy is not the insult, the betrayal, or the failure. The enemy is the part of you that reacts without reflection. To live by emotion is to live like the wind blowing wherever the moment pushes you. To live by virtue is to live like the mountain, steady, grounded, unmoved. Emotion is weather. Virtue is compass. The weather changes, but the compass always points north. Here's the truth. You will feel anger. You will feel pain. You will feel envy, fear, lust, and doubt. The Stoic doesn't deny emotion, he directs it. He lets emotion visit, but never lets it drive. Anger can give you energy. Fear can sharpen your senses. But if you let them rule, they will rule you. That's why the Stoic asks before every action, is this aligned with virtue? Not, does this feel good? Not, will they like me for this? But, is this right? Because that one question draws the line between the impulsive man and the wise one. Here's your practice. Each day before you act, speak, or decide, pause and ask, is this action aligned with virtue? If it is wise, continue. If it is courageous, embrace it. If it is just, stand by it. If it is temperate, honor it. And if it is none of these, walk away. Then, at night, take 5 quiet minutes. Ask yourself, who am I becoming? Not, what did I achieve? Not, did I win today? But, did I live by virtue? Write it down. Face yourself in honesty. Because virtue is not something you claim, it's something you practice. Every day. Every choice. Every breath. Seneca said, "No man can live happily who is not at peace with himself. And there is no peace without virtue. Because without virtue, you are a slave to mood, to impulse, to circumstance. But with virtue, you are free. Free from chaos. Free from regret. Free from the noise of the world." The Stoic doesn't chase pleasure. He chases purpose. He doesn't ask, what do I want? He asks, what is right? Because pleasure fades. Emotion shifts. But virtue endures. Virtue is the compass that leads you home when everything else is lost. So when anger comes, choose justice. When fear whispers, choose courage. When confusion clouds your mind, choose wisdom. When temptation calls, choose temperance. And when the world tells you to react, choose restraint. That's what it means to live by virtue, not emotion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." That's the essence of virtue. It's not about control, it's about consistency. It's not about perfection, it's about alignment. Because emotion moves like the tide, but virtue is the shore it can never wash away. So, the next time life provokes you, pause. Ask, what would virtue do here? Then do that no matter how small, no matter how quiet. Because greatness isn't built in moments of emotion. It's built in moments of discipline. Virtue is the compass. Emotion is the weather. And if you keep walking by your compass, no storm will ever lead you astray. Stay grounded in virtue, and you will always find your way home. Part 10. Rebuild others by rebuilding yourself. There was a time I couldn't look in the mirror, not because I didn't recognize the face staring back, but because I did. I knew the man who lived there, the one who broke promises, who drank to forget, who smiled in public but collapsed in private. I called it coping. But really, it was surrender. Every night, I told myself I'd stop. Every morning, I woke with shame and started again. Until one day, the lie cracked. And I realized something simple and devastating. No one was coming to save me. Not God, not luck, not time. If I wanted to live, I had to rebuild myself, from the inside out. And so I began. Not with grand declarations, not with some overnight miracle, but with a single decision to stop running. I didn't rebuild my life overnight. I rebuilt it one sober sunrise at a time, one honest choice at a time, one moment of control after years of chaos. And slowly, painfully, I realized something Marcus Aurelius had written centuries ago. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. That's what Stoicism taught me. That change isn't about talking, it's about becoming. You don't need to announce your rebirth. You live it quietly, patiently, through action. And when you do, the world begins to shift around you. Because when you rebuild yourself, you rebuild everything you touch. The Stoics believed a good man doesn't preach goodness, he embodies it. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." He meant that real change doesn't come from what you say, it comes from what you radiate. When you become calm, you teach calm. When you act with discipline, you inspire discipline. When you choose virtue over anger, you remind others that they can too. That's how the Stoic changes the world, not through sermons, but through example. For years, I thought fixing others would save me. But I learned the only way to lift others is to stand tall yourself. You can't pour peace into someone's chaos if you're drowning in your own. You can't speak wisdom if your words are still soaked in resentment. So the Stoic starts small. He rebuilds his character, his habits, his integrity, not for applause, not for redemption, but because he knows his presence is his message. When I stopped drinking, people noticed. Not right away, but over time. They saw the calm, the patience, the quiet confidence. Some asked, "How did you do it?" Others said nothing but started changing too. That's when I understood the true ripple effect of virtue. You don't have to tell anyone to rise. You just rise, and your presence becomes proof that they can too. That's how Stoicism spreads, not by force, but by resonance. Marcus didn't reform the empire with speeches. He did it through example, through reason, through presence. Because one virtuous man, steady, patient, disciplined, can awaken goodness in others without ever speaking a word. When you rebuild yourself, you remind the broken that they are not hopeless. You remind the lost that direction still exists. You remind the weak that strength isn't something you find, it's something you build. And maybe that's why the world feels so heavy, because too many people are waiting for someone else to fix it. But Stoicism whispers, start with yourself. Here's your practice. Each morning, ask, what kind of man do I want to be today? Not in theory, but in action. Be patient when it's hardest. Be kind when it's undeserved. Be disciplined when no one's watching. Because every small act of virtue is a brick in the foundation of a better world. At night, take 5 quiet minutes. Write down your answer to one question. Who am I becoming? Not who you were. Not who others think you are. But who you're becoming through your choices, through your consistency, through your courage to change. This is the reflection that rebuilds your character. This is how your life becomes your teaching. And if you're listening to this now and you feel broken, hear me clearly. You are not broken. You are unfinished. You are the work in progress that time and virtue are still shaping. Your scars don't make you weak, they make you real. They make you human. And in your humanity, in your effort to rise again, you give permission for others to rise with you. Seneca wrote, "Men learn while they teach." Every time you rebuild yourself, you teach without words. You become a light in someone else's darkness, even if you don't realize it. Because goodness is contagious. Peace is magnetic. Virtue inspires virtue. That's why Stoicism isn't just a philosophy. It's a living transmission from one healed soul to another. Maybe you've fallen. Maybe you've lost yourself. Maybe you've done things you regret. So did I. But redemption isn't found in punishment. It's found in practice, in the daily act of rebuilding what was once broken. Because every time you rise, you change not only your story, but the story of everyone who watches you rise. So remember this when you rebuild yourself. You're not just saving one life. You're setting a silent example that will echo far beyond your sight. Your children will feel it. Your friends will notice it. The world will be shaped by it. Marcus said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." So dye your soul in virtue, in courage, in kindness, in calm, because the color of your soul becomes the light by which others see. And if the past still haunts you, if the guilt still whispers, let me tell you this truth. I learned the hard way. Your pain is your past. Your virtue is your rebirth. You can't change what you've done, but you can change who you are and who you become from this moment forward. Rebuild yourself not for glory, but for peace. Rebuild yourself not for perfection, but for progress. Rebuild yourself, because when you do, you rebuild the world around you. You are not broken. You are unfinished. And every act of virtue is another step toward your rebirth. Conclusion: the second life. I used to drink to forget my pain. But pain never leaves when you run from it. It only hides and waits. Stoicism taught me to face it, to sit with it, to listen. Because pain isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. And when you stop escaping it, you start understanding it. I've learned that rebirth doesn't happen in one night. It happens in the quiet moments. When you stop blaming, when you stop pretending, and you finally whisper to yourself, "This time, I will change." That whisper is the sound of a man coming back to life. I used to think strength was loud, that it meant shouting through the pain, forcing everything to bend to my will. But the Stoics showed me that strength is calm. It's stillness in the storm. It's the ability to endure without losing your soul. And the truth is, you don't need to become perfect. You just need to become present. You don't need to fix the past. You just need to take responsibility for the next breath. When you wake up tomorrow, remember this: the man you were is gone. The man you become starts now. Every morning is a resurrection, another chance to build, to rise, to begin again. And if you stumble, that's fine. The Stoic doesn't chase perfection, he seeks progress. Better today than yesterday, that's enough. So don't just survive life, rebuild it. One small decision, one disciplined act, one Stoic habit at a time. Because every act of virtue is a brick in the foundation of your second life. And when the old voices return, the ones that say, "You'll never change," smile, because they're wrong. You already have. You faced your pain. You reclaimed your mind. You rose from the ashes and learned to carry fire. Because even ashes can rise if you light them with virtue. If this journey spoke to you, stay. This place, this channel, is for those who choose to rebuild, who choose to live with clarity, who choose to walk the Stoic path quietly, but with purpose. And if this video brought you value, you can tap the thanks button to support me in creating more content. And before you go, write one line in the comments. Your promise to your future self. Something simple. Something strong. Write, I begin again. Because that's what this is. A beginning. A second life. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. Rise again and live with calm.